This week, the Gauteng South Division of the High Court handed down one of the harshest sentences for human trafficking in recent history, in the country's history at least. 7 Chinese nationals operating under the facade of a business called Beautiful City Pty Ltd were sentenced to at least 20 years each for a crime both horrific and systemic. 91 Malawian nationals were rescued. 37 of them were children, forced into servitude, maimed and discarded. Their labor, their dignity, sold for cheap profit. But this is not an isolated incident. Authorities confirm that dozens of similar cases are under investigations, active investigations. Some are already in courtrooms, others shrouded in secrecy and still under the radar of the hawks. South Africa has become a critical node in global trafficking networks, a source, a transit and a destination country. And the numbers are rising. But how deep does the rabbit hole go, really? Who are the players? What's fueling this machine? This afternoon, we tackle the grim reality of trafficking, what lies beneath the surface of our towns, our borders, and our economy. And to help us break it down, we're joined by Mashaile, human trafficking expert and international anti-crime advocate. Chad Thomas, security analyst and specialist in organized crime networks. But first, let's listen to this.
The owner is right here in this country, you know that?
Who is he?
Who is he?
It's I tell you, that big boss, he has a gun-related background in this Chinese community in this country.
Well, those were scenes in the courtroom when that sentence was handed down, one of the harshest sentences. But is a harsh sentence, a deterrent enough? Andy, do you think a high sentence, 20 years for trafficking, is that a deterrent enough to make those in the network and value chain of human trafficking think twice about their actions in South Africa?
For the runners who each got 20 years, it's a deterrent. For the kingpin, the master of the syndicate, it's water under the bridge. And this is the reason, Oliver. When you look at the runnership profile and you look at the immediate commander or supervisor of the syndicate, the supervisor of the syndicate is nowhere to be seen. So those are simple runners, and they will not create an impact on the transnational organized crime syndicates that operate from China until up to Cyril Dean in next to Eastgate, where you find Chinese foreign nationals being tracked from home by the triads, for the want of a better word, your mafia, that are running this transnational organized crime next to arms trafficking, next to food crime, pharmaceutical crimes, and many of those crimes that they are good at, including abalone from your Western Cape back into their home country, that is China. So this is just a small dent in on the whole syndicate.
Yeah, give us a sense, how widespread is human trafficking in South Africa? And of course, human trafficking is a transnational crime in its nature. How widespread is it in South Africa? And where does South Africa fall in the global value chain of human trafficking?
From a crime point of view, in the region, we are leading general crime. And we are now beginning to assume third positions in the whole continent from a human trafficking point of view. In the world, we play in the top 20 when it comes echo from.
So, sorry, Andy, go ahead.
In the world, we are playing in the top 10 from a human trafficking point of view. So we really have begun not to be a crossover point, but a hotspot. Yeah.
Chad, we often hear of drug busts at OR Tambo, quite routinely so, to be quite honest. Seemingly South Africa is an important transit or destination country for drug smuggling, for instance, which is concomitant to human trafficking. We often hear of, big busts being made where a house, for instance, has been, set upon by police, and many foreign nationals have been rescued, many of them being children, such as the case we're talking about here. But how good really are local policing authorities in dismantling human trafficking syndicates. We often rely on the intelligence of Interpol and other multilateral policing organizations. But how good are our local police, local intelligence at dismantling human trafficking syndicates?
A very good afternoon to you, my co-panelist Andy, and of course to the viewers at home. Look, it's a very important point you brought up, and you used the word dismantling. And crime intelligence works on the principle of disruption and dismantling of syndicates. As you so rightly pointed out, South Africa has become a massive transshipment point for international crime syndicates, whether it's the trafficking in drugs or the trafficking in people, or even the trafficking in arms and other illicit goods such as gold, diamonds, tobacco, etc. Our crime intelligence, as we all know, has had issues in the past. They have now created task-specific teams that seem to be making a dent, albeit a small dent, in these criminal syndicates, but they are reaching out to international partners, as is the Hawks. When one looks at some of the drug transshipment syndicates that have been bust abroad, specifically in Australia, that was through joint projects that emanated in South Africa, because South Africa has emerged as one of the biggest export points of drugs into Australia. We have drugs coming in on the west coast from South America, primarily cocaine. We have drugs coming in on the east coast from as far afield as Afghanistan, Pakistan, via Dar es Salaam or Maputo, and then gets repackaged in South Africa and sent abroad. Now, one must understand that without these partnerships between our local law enforcement, our crime intelligence community, together with the international counterparts, we wouldn't be having these significant busts both locally as well as abroad. And another very important point we have to take into consideration is that whether we're talking human trafficking, or whether we're talking trafficking in endangered species, whether we're talking trafficking in minerals or drugs, there's this cross-pollination, there's this dovetailing of sorts between international crime syndicates. Crime syndicates are no longer just contained with one specific crime. You find them engaging with one another to commit various crimes across the board. So if you're able to come down hard on a drug smuggling syndicate, you'll be able to also get information regarding human trafficking, regarding the trafficking in endangered species, simply because they're using the same routes, the same mechanisms, and the same people to do this.
So let's talk about the rhino horn, for instance, which is a big smuggling commodity with Southeast Asia, which includes, of course, China and to a large extent Taiwan as well. Are you saying that if we know who the biggest horn smugglers are, we'll know who the biggest human trafficking smugglers are, and perhaps who would also be the biggest contraband smugglers are, despite the fact that horn is in demand in one part of the world, whereas cocaine and methamphetamine is in demand in another part of the world, Chad?
Oh, most definitely. When one looks at the smuggling of methaquilene powder into South Africa via the old Lusaka, Zambia route into South Africa, that was exchanged for stolen vehicles. So you had vehicle theft syndicates in South Africa operating with Indian mafia that were sitting in Lusaka in Zambia, and also in Maputo in Mozambique, swapping out stolen vehicles for drugs. We've seen a nexus between illicit tobacco and illicit gold. So it would make sense that if you've created a route to smuggle, you're going to rent out that route, you're going to rent out your soldiers to the others. When one looks at the nexus of organized crime in South Africa, you'll find that soldiers are hired out by syndicates. Those same soldiers are used in murder for hire, death for ransom, ATM bombings, CRT heists. And the same when it comes to stolen vehicles. You need stolen vehicles to traffic people, to traffic contraband, to participate in CRT heists, to participate in ATM bombings, to hold people and to take them to different places in terms of kidnap for ransom. The same when it comes to safe houses. You need safe houses to keep people that you are trafficking, just like you need safe houses to keep contraband, and you need safe houses to keep people who are being trafficked. So there is most definitely, without a shadow of doubt, a nexus between all the organized crime syndicates that are currently using South Africa as a springboard.
And one of the reasons South Africa got grey-listed by FATF was precisely because South Africa, it was easy to facilitate transactions to financing organized crime and illicit trade in South Africa. Of course, we had to close the loop on that, on a number of those such payments, except for a very peculiar type of payment, which are called the Wahala-based payment, which is entirely based on trust across transnational transactions. But does South Africa remain a country where it's easy to transact in and to finance illicit trade and organized crime?
Yes, Oliver. And by the way, it's the Hawala system. Hawala system.
My apologies. I said Wahala, which means
yes.
no worry.
Yeah. It's very easy to finance criminal activities. Let me cite or illustrate an example. You give us a 1 ton or 10 tons of abalone. We will give you 350 kilograms of heroin from the poppy fields in Afghanistan through Iran coming here. And when you receive that cocaine, you should be able to say, I will share this 350 kilograms of cocaine with those who are giving me 100 AK-47s that are going to be used in the cash and transit hide. So one way or the other, you are developing a new modus operandi of financing crime. And also take into consideration, Oliver, my brother, the transnational organized crime syndicates being highly advanced in the cryptocurrency, decentralizing financing system, which includes, amongst others, Hawala. Does it include Mukuru? Does it include all other systems that are operating here? One of them would be your Facebook checkout for friends, which normally when you have used that financial platform, you will not be able to get your money back in the event of any scam or in the event of the criminals having duped you. Some of these PayPal for goods as well, goods and services, as well as Facebook for goods and services. Those financing platforms that we can use, that we can follow, that we can investigate as the country. So your financial systems and the ease with which criminals can run ahead creates a serious platform for us to get off the FATF grey list. Remember, we are still on the grey list. We have not met the target yet. And the last time they came to visit us, which is this year, we were still not having, still on the grey list and not having met the requirements as prescribed by Financial Action Task Force.
Yeah. Chad, illegitimate businesses need to clean that money, and they often use legitimate businesses to do so. Have we formed the necessary intelligence and forensic skill set to be able to identify businesses that are often fronts for illegitimate transacting and financing? And have we been able to infiltrate those networks as law enforcement and intelligence agencies?
The simple answer is no. We've been trying to get off the grey list. FATF grey listed us for a number of reasons. We had two issues that were still outstanding after the June inspection. They'll be back in October, and it looks as if we've met that criteria. Hopefully we will be coming off, and then our agencies can concentrate more on the fact that money laundering is happening on a massive scale in South Africa. We're going to be under enhanced scrutiny by FATF, Egmont Group, and other FIUs for the next 2 years once we come off the grey list. But this has been a very good lesson for South Africa, because it means that we've had amendments to legislation, new legislation come in, and we've also seen the Financial Intelligence Centre emerge as a very powerful player in the fight against money laundering, as well as the international terror funding, of which we're now seeing South Africa playing a role, which was quite bizarre. We're now finding that there's ISIS cells in South Africa that are using kidnap for ransom, the dealing in drugs and weapons, to finance terror in other countries. But to your question about legitimate businesses being utilized in South Africa for money laundering, we're seeing it whether it's car washes, whether it's churches, because churches do operate as businesses these days. We see it with boutiques, we see it with restaurants, we see it with barbershops. It has increased significantly. We need role players like the CIPC to come in, and we need SARS, because SARS has access to more data than any organization except perhaps the FIC, the Financial Intelligence Centre, to be able to understand just how big the problem is, and to bring that illicit money back into the mainstream economy, and to make sure that the proceeds of these crimes are introduced into what we call the CARA account. The CARA account was an account that was set up with the NPA and the AFU to fight crime. So the long and the short of it is we have a money laundering problem. We do have the agencies to sort it out. We just have to get to it.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to leave it there. Andy Mashaile, who is a human trafficking expert and international anti-crime advocate, thank you so much for your time. Chad Thomas, a security analyst, thank you so much for your time here as well.